Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I have here Mr. Dr. David Tenenbaum, and he has written a book. He used to work for the U.S. Army. He's a chemical engineer and accused of treason. And I am so interested to hear this story. I'm cheap. I'm not going to buy the book. I just want you to tell me the story. No, but please tell us a little bit about you and where you're born and raised, and we'll get into how you got to write this book.
Okay. I still work for the U.S. Army, believe it or not.
Okay.
People ask me why I still do, but that's a different question. You can ask me afterwards. But I'm a born and bred Detroiter. I grew up in Michigan. I'm a first generation American. My mother, it was Canadian. She never changed her citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
I remember asking her one time, I said, Mom, why don't you become a U.S. citizen? She said, you never know when I'm going to go back. I said, Mom, you're 90 years old. You've been living here for like 80 years. When are you going back? But she never changed her citizenship. My father was a Holocaust survivor,
Mm-hmm.
and he came here after the war. He was in Auschwitz and other of the death camps, concentration camps, and he was the oldest of three, maybe four. Don't really know because he never really talked about it at all. And like I said, I grew up in Michigan. I went to school in Michigan. My bachelor's and master's, I went to Wayne State University in Michigan, well-known school for a mechanical engineer. And I got my doctorate from Baker College, also in Michigan, and in business. I actually started working when I really started working, quote, a real job, as they call it. Because when you're 16 and work as a lifeguard, it's not considered a real job. I started working in a university setting. I did at the medical school at Wayne State University. I did cancer research and multiple sclerosis research. And I realized, though, I was told I'll never go further unless I was an MD, and even a PhD wouldn't be helpful. And at that time, I was interested in going into becoming a doctor. And I got a job for General Dynamics Land Systems Division, which is a contractor for the U.S. Army. Worked there for about a year, and then I met somebody who had retired from the Army who was working in General Dynamics and said, hey, you'd be perfect for my old team for the Army. And he got me an interview, and they said, whoa, you speak Hebrew fluently. You've been to Israel, because I had been to Israel. I studied in Israel when I was after college. And they said, you know the country, you know the people, you speak Hebrew, we've got Israeli programs, you're a great match. And that's why I ended up working for the Army.
Oh wow! So you're a Michiganite, I guess that's what they call you.
Michigander.
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 Well, I can say one thing for Michigan. Thank you for sending Ted Nugent our way.
You got to tell him that.
Hey, if I can ever find him, I mean, I think he lives in North Texas. I want to find him one day and say, hey, thanks for coming to the right place.
That's great.
Okay, so you work for the Army, chemical engineer, and so how in the world would you end up being accused of treason?
That's actually a long story, but and you could stop me at any point in time. I didn't really do chemical engineering in the Army. What I was classified as, they classify you, they put you in different classifications, mechanical engineer. And I was really working on programs that had to do with what I always define it as. I came into what was called the survivability division. Mm-hmm. And I was specifically in the armor group when I first started working for the Army. And my job, as I always see it, the soldier is our client. That's it. Our job is to make sure the soldier stays safe, soldier comes home alive, unhurt. My job was to look at vehicles such as the M1 tank, Humvees, Bradleys, M113s, land-based vehicles, combat vehicles, transport vehicles, and make sure they had the proper armor and to ensure the guys inside were safe. And I was actually sent to Israel 3 times for the Army. They sent me there for different programs I was working on for other areas. And there were apparently, I didn't realize it when this was at the time until I didn't find out until much later, that there were people that said, well, you know, he's Jewish. He wears that thing on his head. He speaks Hebrew. He's spying on Israel, on the United States for Israel, based on the fact that I speak Hebrew. Now, keeping in mind, my group was known as like the United Nations. We had a guy from Russia, spoke Russian fluently, German. We had a guy from Iran. We had a guy from Taiwan. And people spoke all different languages. So who did they suspect of doing anything wrong? Me, the Jew, because I was hired because I speak Hebrew, been to Israel. I was suspected because I speak Hebrew and been to Israel. And what would happen is, if you, as one of my colleagues, suspect that I'm doing something inappropriate, it's called a saida. You have to file what's called a subversive act of espionage directed against the army. You file this, it goes against the FBI, and you know that Tenenbaum guy, you know that Dr. Tenenbaum guy, he's speaking on the phone Hebrew to Israelis. You know, there's a guy he speaks. We had 4 liaison officers on our base: Israel, Britain, Canada, and Germany. He speaks to that Israeli guy, you know, in Hebrew. And that worries us. So the FBI would come in and they do without letting me know, because I never knew this was going on, and they do an investigation. It's called a preliminary investigation. And they would come back and say, he didn't do anything wrong. He's doing his job. Now, they never suspected me of passing on information to the Canadian guy, or the German guy, the Brit. I spoke to everybody because depending on what program I had at the time, I would speak to each of the liaison officers. Mm-hmm. Considering I was sent to the government too, it's very strange. But there were people that would not give up. Now, I didn't find out till later also, there were probably 6 or 7 saidas filed against me at different points in time. And I think pretty much almost the same lead agent from the FBI came and did the investigation, said the guy hasn't done anything wrong. Come with something concrete. Have you ever seen MASH?
Oh,
remember MASH? Okay. So there's a guy in MASH, Colonel Flagg, the communist under every Bush. No one remember that. And the guy that really had problems with me compared him to Colonel Flagg. This is according to people that work for him. He didn't like Jews. He didn't like Israelis, and he thought I was giving information away, and I was being treasonous. And he was working on trying to get me investigated, but the FBI said, we have nothing here. It reached at one point where I came back from one of my trips to Israel. I'd gone to a conference and had meetings, and you have to get debriefed from when you come back from overseas. And I think it's in Defense Investigative Services or military intelligence. We used to call them the Keystone Cops from Selfridge Air Force Base. And you get debriefed right away because you don't want to forget everything. They debriefed me 9 months to a year after I'd come back. And they were saying, you know, what hotel did you stay at? Now, I used to travel a lot. I said, I get up in the morning sometimes, look in the mirror and say, who is that? Like they wanted to know who I spoke to at the conference, what I spoke about, how long I spoke to them, where I spoke to them. I said there were 200-300 people at the conference. I spoke to people dealing with baseball, football, armor, and everything else. I don't have a clue. And that put like, he's not telling us the truth. And it just reached this crescendo where Simonini, who was the guy who did this, was Lieutenant Colonel at the time. There was a secret brief. They were trying to get me to. They wanted to upgrade my security clearance. Mm-hmm. They didn't really want to upgrade my security clearance, but if you have your security clearance upgraded, then they can interview you if they want to, without you knowing they are actually under investigation. I think they call that illegal. Mm-hmm. They didn't want me to have an attorney there. I didn't know any of this, but also I didn't want the upgrade in security clearance. So people say, you don't want the upgrade? So, no, with upgrading security clearance comes great responsibility. It's actually just a pain in the neck. I didn't want it. And they were like shocked. Spy doesn't want to upgrade security clearance. I didn't want it because I wasn't doing anything wrong, obviously. Till finally my boss at the time, or third line boss, who Simonini spoke to, said, get him to sign off on the paperwork to get a security clearance upgraded. He finally said, you need this, you need this. I finally signed off on it. At the same time, Simonini had a briefing. I believe it was at my base at TACOM in Warren, Michigan. High-level people there. It went up to, I think, could have been Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Army, whatever. It was high level. And he said, he put in and said, this guy is a spy. He's spying on U.S. for Israel. And they were like, they pretty much gave him carte blanche to do whatever he wanted. And I didn't know this at the time, but I put in the paperwork. I was told, okay, you're going to have an interview now. It wasn't an interview, it was an interrogation. The interview started off as, it was good cop, bad cop. Morning, they asked me what I did and everything. And after lunch, they had gone to Simonini, and Simonini said, oh, he's violated all these different regulations, which were totally untrue. And believe me, if it was true, I wouldn't be working for the government. I'd probably be in jail right now. And after lunch, it was, you're probably not familiar with, remember Gordie Howe? We call it the Gordie Howe mushroom treatment. And they said, you've been passing classified information on to the Israelis. This is out of nowhere. I said, what? And they said, no, you've been passing classified information on. I said, I have not done anything of the sort. They said, well, you have to take a polygraph. If you don't, the worst case is you're going to jail. The next best case is you're going to be fired, or you're going to be in a corner the rest of your life. You're never going to do any work again. And I had no idea my rights or anything else. And I'm like, I don't have to take any polygraphs. So I was like, no, you do. Or right now, we're going to cause you all sorts of problems. So finally, they had gone to like the Simonini, and Simonini told them I'd done all these things, and they were in cahoots with him. Eventually, I went to the polygraph. I wanted to record it, and they said, you're not allowed to record a polygraph. Can't record. I thought, it's no big deal. No, you're not allowed to. It's a regulation. It's ridiculous. And I don't know if you know how polygraphs work, but one of the first questions they ask you is, how do you sleep the night before? Taking any drugs, any alcohol? It messes it up. Another thing that messes it up if you get angry, get ticked off. And at the polygraph, the polygrapher got in my face and started yelling at me and said, you're spying for Israel. You've passed classified information on the Israelis. I've done other Jews before. I've gotten them to confess. I'll get you to confess too. And he started naming somebody that he got to confess. And I said, I'm not confessing. He said, I don't want you to confess. I want you to write out your confession. Now, when you get angry, that's it. The polygraph is down the tubes because it can't measure things correctly. And I said, I'm not writing out a confession. I didn't do anything wrong. And eventually I just left. He said, okay, you can go. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get arrested. I still hadn't told my wife everything. It was on a Thursday, I believe. And I remember going home and thinking to myself, what am I supposed to tell my wife? Like, what do you tell somebody? Oh, you think I'm a spy? I mean, it's ridiculous. And needless to say, I didn't do much sleeping at that point. And he said, you have until, I think it was Monday, to write it, to confess. He gave me his personal card. And I ended up going home, and I spoke to a friend of mine who was an attorney, but not the right kind of attorney. And we discussed, whatever. I decided I'd go to work early the next day just to at least get my mind off of it. I went into my office, and I didn't know that Simonini had already told her, the polygrapher went to the FBI and told him I confessed to being a spy, and which obviously he lied. They wanted me to get on the base. They wanted me there. And they said, make sure he gets on the base. Don't tell him anything. The FBI is on its way to the base. And I went to my office. My computer was gone.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, this isn't good. I have to report it. I had an idea of certain things going on. And I tried to get onto the system through somebody else's computer. I didn't exist on the system anymore. It was like I was never there. And I'm cutting the story quickly, but I ended up, I went back to my desk after going to the military police station. I was surrounded by agents, FBI, CAA, DIS, whatever, name an acronym, we were probably there. The one person that was not there was Lieutenant Colonel John Simonini, which I always found to be weird. What's going on? Oh, he had a closing on a house, they told me. It's like, wow, I guess that does take precedence over supposedly getting one of the biggest spy cases in not just Michigan, the U.S. history. And I remember that we went into it. It was done all in the open. All my colleagues saw what was going on, and I was accused in the open. And when we went into a room, like me and myself and maybe 10 other people, and the lead FBI agent said, you know, we know this is spying going on. Why don't you tell us what's going on? And I said, why don't you tell me what's going on? And he starts quoting the polygrapher and notes. And I said, well, that's not even right. Everything you're saying, because you can prove what I said because I have all the paperwork. The polygrapher destroyed his notes afterwards. Right. And it turns out that the lead FBI agent did recognize that he said something's wrong here. He didn't say it out loud, but he said something's wrong. And he recognized the polygrapher was lying. And after a little bit of time, I got up. I said, I'm done. If you want to arrest me, arrest me. I'm not sticking around. He said, we have nothing to arrest you on. I said, I know. And I got my stuff and I started walking out. And I figured I'm going to get arrested any moment.
So, I don't mean to cut you off, but
please.
Basically, this one man's prejudice got you all this grief for nothing.
Right, but but everybody else was complacent in it too. The people that could have stopped it didn't stop it. The DIS, the polygrapher, the military intelligence people, they were all. It was like, I don't want to say a conspiracy, but if one person would have stood up and said this is wrong, even the lead FBI agent, he tried at one point, but he didn't continue it. If he would have just said, I'm not doing this anymore, this is ridiculous. But this is what happened. I was eventually cleared of everything after being suspended for 18 months, and the FBI, having 6 or 7 FBI agents come to my house with guns on our Sabbath on Saturday and taking our house apart with my 2 little kids there at the time, my 1.5-year-old and 4.5-year-old. And even when he came in, the lead FBI agent said, I don't know what I'm doing here. I told him not to do this. He actually said that. He admitted it too. So I was accused. I was cleared finally. And my security clearance was actually upgraded from secret to top secret when I was cleared. It took another 4 years after that because they wanted to take it away. And I was told by the people I worked for, they said, you will never ever get promoted again. You were lucky. They're not getting rid of you because they just can't get rid of you, but they're going to find a way. And I was told this. And my focus has always been, look for the positives and to always try to understand whatever happens, it's a faith type of thing, happens for the best. My job is not to figure out why. My job is to continue forward and do what I've always done to protect the soldier, to make sure they come back alive. The problem was when I was suspended, they killed the major program I was working on at the time, called the LAST program, Light Armored System Survivability. I was working with the Germans and the Israelis, and we were telling them, this is going back to probably 1990 at least, where actually even before that, we said, if we get into a war situation, the Humvees, as they are now, soldiers will die. There are ammunition, there's types of, I don't know if we called it IEDs at the time, it will go through that vehicle. I have all the paperwork on it. And I said, soldiers are going to die. And they can't, Simonini had a good hand in canceling the program. And guess what? How many soldiers were maimed through IEDs and Humvees? We were working on a solution to it. And it was actually written up in the report from an Inspector General's office that said Dr. Tenenbaum was one of 3 people that actually even thought ahead and were working on a solution before it happened. And as my attorney said, they have blood on their hands, but nobody knows about it. People don't know because it's not been written up.
Everything's always pushed under the rug,
Correct. Correct.
It's, someone in your shoes who could have easily been angry. You'd have been justified at being angry. You decided to turn it into something positive, move forward, keep going like you're supposed to be going. But I for one, I mean, I'm angry for you, and I wouldn't blame you if you would have made a stink about it. But I have to commend you for handling things the way you did.
Thank you. Thank you. I think part of it is that, like, someone asked me a question of like being angry, and why did you write the book and things like that? Are you doing it for revenge? Even obviously, I wrote with a ghostwriter, and the ghostwriter we both interviewed each other. And I remember her saying to me after we were done with the interview, she said, if you were doing this for revenge, I would never have taken this. I said, I'm not looking for revenge. I believe that everything that happens is for the best. It's not my job in this world to take revenge on anybody. If the government wants these people, that's their business. I have a job to do. I remember I had an attorney at one point when we were suing the government, really nice guy. We were at the federal courthouse downtown after we just had gone through a deposition. I remember him looking at me outside the courthouse. He said, Tenenbaum, you should be in jail. I said, excuse me? He said, you should be in jail. I said, I didn't do anything wrong. You know that. He said, that's not the point. I know you didn't do anything wrong. But if the government wants to put you in jail, they will put you in jail. You don't understand how it works. I said, I know. He said, I don't get it. I said, truthfully, the difference between you and me is that I don't know his background, but I said, I believe in God. It's faith. And if it's supposed to happen, it will happen. My job is to protect the soldier. That's what I've always done. And the problem is, if you work in the government, you see people get more concerned with, did you dot the I, cross the T? Did you take the proper training? Like, did you take your quote manager training courses where you see certificates on somebody's wall, all full of, I've taken all these manager courses, and they're horrendous managers. It's like, great, paste a piece of paper on the wall. There are two things that come to mind, and you can stop me anytime if you want.
Oh no, keep going, please.
One of the things that got me to write the book was I've been invited at different points in time to speak in different places. One place I spoke at, I was invited as a friend of mine, runs the ZOA here, Zionist Organization of America, said, would you speak for us at the Holocaust Memorial Center? I said, yeah, I could do it. We had a date, and I remember talking to him. We spoke. I was driving there that night to go to speak. I said, well, how many people do you think are going to show? I said, I think we're going to be like 50, maybe 75. He said, maybe 75, 100. It's supposed to start at 7:30. At 7:15, there were 500 people. And I was like, do they know that it's me speaking, or are they coming for somebody else? They said, no, they want to, it's the story they want to hear. And I remember no one left. I spoke for over an hour. No one got up. And I had a bunch of questions afterwards. And a guy came up to me afterwards. He was a journalist or writer. He said, don't speak again till you write a book. You got to write a book. It's important for people to know that this type of thing still happens in this day and age. We know there's people complain of there's a Me Too movement, systemic racism, there's anti-Semitism. People don't take some of the things seriously. And the story has to get out. But even more important is, don't let it affect you. Don't let the negatives in your life affect you. Come away from a positive with positives. I went years after this. I went to a meeting. I can't get into the details, but I went to a meeting, and there's somebody there that was very familiar with the casualties. I call them kids, casualties in Humvees, what was left of them. And this person looked at me, literally crying, and said, you guys are the ones that are responsible for making sure our kids come home alive. Why didn't you do it? You're the ones responsible for designing the vehicles. Why didn't you do it? It's your fault. And I said, I tried. I did the best I could, but my programs were canceled. I had nothing to do with it. I did the best I could. And I will never, ever forget the look on the person's face. And I've always taken way of doing things. I tell my kids, you got to try. You can't fail if you don't try. And you also have to stand up for what you believe in, and make sure whatever you do inspires other people to move in a positive direction as well. And I hope that maybe for my book that people will see, you know what? You don't have to come away with something to look like, oh, poor me, poor me. It's not what we're supposed to do. Maybe it'll empower other people to do the right things. I mean, we've been trying for a long time to get, I wish I had connections in the Hollywood area, because celebrities have an ability to get stories out there that we little people can't do. I've tried politicians, I've tried a lot of things, but I'm not giving up. I was actually told by someone who shall not be named, who said to me, you know, whenever your name is mentioned in the Inspector General's office in the Department of Defense, who put out a report that said it was anti-Semitism, and when your name is mentioned, there's usually a 4-letter adjective attached to the front of it. I said, huh, I think I can guess, but I won't. I don't use that kind of language. But I think I can guess.
Thank you. I
thought it was
to
funny.
avoid that kind of language myself.
Yeah, I don't.
Just, you know, when you get to be grandpas like we are, we try to avoid those kind of words. I used them all up when my kids were little.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I think it's interesting that, you know, we teach our kids that you mess up, take responsibility for it, say you're sorry, move on, but learn from it. In the government, there's no accountability.
No.
There's no transparency, and transparency would lead to accountability. In my case, it's if people lying, you go higher up, they lie, the next person does also, and that's not the way I grew up. It's like, you know, take it like a man. You messed up, move forward.
Right.
As a friend of mine said, actually somebody we're heavily involved in my case said to me, if this happened in private industry, this would have been fixed so many years ago. In February was my 24th anniversary of dealing with this. We're still dealing with it.
It's crazy. Well, you know, a lot of people, when they have something along that line happen to them, they turn to drugs, turn to alcohol, turn to crime, you know, all these different things. Instead, you chose a more positive route, and, you know, writing a book, and to do it without seemingly calling out everybody under the sun. That's impressive.
Yeah, I'm not. I had an opportunity. There are people that told me things which will never go put in a book, and they said you can use this. This will show certain things. I don't want to even speak about that. I said, if I use that story you're telling me, which I know is true, and I can verify it. I said, all I'm going to succeed in doing is destroying the person's family and themselves. What's the point of that? I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in pointing out the people that did wrong that have never admitted guilt, and even the people that I had stories about. There's no point in doing it to anybody. I mean, I could look at it, and someone once asked me how it affected, like you brought out people turn to drugs, people turn to alcohol, how it affected me, and why maybe I wasn't affected the same way. And I think I always call it more there's 3 things, the 3 F's: faith, family, and friends. There was not one friend of mine, not one person in my community. I'm an Orthodox Jew and community, mostly Jews. No one ever believed I did anything wrong. My family totally backed me to the hilt. And faith, believing there's a higher power, God, that's making sure there's reasons behind things, and we just don't know. We're not privy to it all. So so things happen to us, so we can learn from them and maybe be an inspiration. Who knows? I think of myself as an inspiration. It's kind of funny, but maybe we're supposed to be there as an example for other people to look at. And I mean, definitely. I mean, I increased my workouts. I put it like that. I work out whenever I deal with the case. Um, but the one thing I can never really forgive is it took time away from my family, because when you're facing, and I was facing life imprisonment or the death penalty, and I was told there's a good chance you're going to jail, and I was told if you go, you're never getting out. Facing that on a daily basis for almost 18 months, never knowing, am I going to jail? Am I going to get the death sentence for something I never did anything wrong? Um, it takes away from your ability to spend time with your family, because you're focused. You're focused on this all the time. Even when it was done, I sued the government, and you're focused on just, you're consumed in a way with trying to make things right. But I've learned, over the past 3 years, like, you can't be consumed, and to take it more. Like, my daughters taught me a lot. My wife, my boys helped me a lot in terms of, this is what's important in life. This is, anything else is just, dressing. It's great to do, but I'm not. It's not about the job. It's about what you do with yourself. It's about how you handle yourself. It's not the tests we go through. It's how we deal with the tests. And I think this is just a test. So, and what I try to tell people too, it's not just a Tenenbaum issue. People think, oh, you're just trying to do it for yourself. I say, you don't understand. It's not a Tenenbaum issue. It's not a Jewish issue. It affects anybody who's different. It's a systemic issue. And it's, as one person, I don't know who it was, a high-level government employee said, it's because they said, well, they invoked the state secrets privilege about 2.5 years after we sued, and we went through all the discovery, which I'll tell you a story about that. But it's not state secret, it's a state embarrassment. And when you're in a deposition, I remember Simonides in the deposition. We're in this deposition, and he's sitting with his attorney. I'm sitting with my attorney. The stenographer sitting at the head of the table. I don't even remember the question that was asked. All I remember is Simonides is paraphrasing his answer, and he said something like, "Jews are different. It's just part of their culture. It's kind of things that they do." And again, paraphrasing, they pulled him out of that deposition so quickly. I watch a stenographer. It's like watching one of these comedy TV shows. Stenographer is typing. She just looked up. She stopped typing. I looked at my attorney. I said, "Did he just say what I think he said?" And they pulled him out. And about a week or so later, they invoked the state secrets privilege. And people, high-level government people that supported me in the case, that tried to get it done right, got fired. A couple people got fired partially because of me, because they stuck up for me. So there's a lot of things here, and we have to really we have to confront. My daughter always says, "Don't use the word confront." We have to stand up for ourselves. We just stand up, confront racism, anti-Semitism. Like I said, the Me Too movement. It's this. My story has to get out there, not because of me, but because of what it represents.
Right.
And it should not happen to anybody. And it shouldn't matter if I'm black, if I'm Hispanic, if I'm a woman, I'm Asian. It doesn't matter. Jewish. We should stand up because it's the right thing to do. It's bullying. It's bullying in a way at its best. If you saw somebody being bullied, I don't think you'd say, "Oh, it's too bad," and walk away. Bullies get away with it because no one stands up to them. When someone stands up to them, all of a sudden, oh yeah, I better watch myself. But in my case, there hasn't been any accountability. But I'll keep on fighting for what's right. But it's because my job is still to protect the soldier, even though they're still trying to get rid of me. But I'll keep on fighting for, or trying to move ahead. I don't want to use the word fight. I told you my daughter doesn't use the word fight. I'm trying to stand up for what's right, and to really make sure, so maybe some good things can come out of it eventually.
Well, yeah, it all has to do with the narrative. That's whether they're going to stand up for you or not.
Correct.
And I'll just have to say, someone with your kind of character, if everybody thought that way, then maybe we would be able to change some things in this world.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well,
Look,
everybody's so quick to like they say, throw a stone. They they don't they don't take in consideration character. You know, I'm there's no sense of me going out and say putting this man's family and home at risk because he made a mistake. I'm all granted a bad mistake, but not everybody in his family deserves to pay the consequences. Unfortunately, people in society nowadays feel like they got to put their family and friends out there for everybody to attack. So
that's correct.
just
And
saying.
and what they did, because when I was accused, they instead of as the FBI lead agent said to me, he apologized, which I always thought it was pretty funny. Um, when when after they went through my house and took it apart, they file it, and there's journalists all the time in federal courthouses and different places, looking for stories, and they didn't seal my file. And the normal they seal common drug busts. They didn't seal my file, and they said, "Oh yeah, we made a mistake." Well, their mistake, supposed mistake, I was international news. If you can look up newspapers from that time period, February 1997, I was international news, and it put my life and my family's life in jeopardy. I couldn't go home. I was told by my attorney, they said, someone's crazy enough, they're going to take a pot shot at you. I didn't find out till later. My wife didn't tell me. Someone called the house and yelled traitor on the phone and hung up. My kids had to go to school. Their carpool had to come in back of the house in order to pick them up because my house was surrounded by journalists, TV cameras. So it put us all in jeopardy. And even now, even though I was completely cleared of everything, and I'm still fighting, and I'm still standing up and fighting to do work in my field, where the people I'm working for now, I'm on the same base, different group, they're literally trying to get me to quit by my job. My task now is, which I've explained I won't be able to do it, is to, little exaggeration, count pencils and to tell them how many they have, to count how many drones they have and put it in, let us know where they're located. I said, you do realize I have put technology over in Afghanistan and Asia. My designs are there to save lives. You want me to work an Excel program? You want me to do these things? Isn't it a bit of a waste? Can't you find someone else? Maybe I can get you probably a seventh grader that might be able to do it. Or it's maybe my grandson who's like 14 months old, 16 months old, give him time, he'll be able to do it. I'm not a computer person. I will tell you right now, I am not a computer person, but it's such a waste. And I've literally have complaints. I have EEO complaints, and it's constant waste of my time fighting and writing up complaints. And somebody said, go get a job somewhere else. I said, let me tell you how it works nowadays in a new technology era. It's like you and me, we're the same age. New technology, you Google someone's name, you get everything you need on them. Mm-hmm. People Google my name, and they say, oh, we don't want him. And I'm like, okay, it's not my problem. I'll move on. So I laugh sometimes when someone tells me the job's not there that I applied for, because I think it's funny. I think it's funny because, like, we all make our choices. We choose whether or not to move forward or to help people or not. And because someone once asked you, don't you get angry at these people? I said, what do I get angry for? It's not my problem. It's like, if this is what it's supposed to be, this is what it's going to be. And I will, whatever happens, I will move forward, and I'll be able to find something eventually, and I'll help people. I know I can help. I know I can help our soldiers, and I'll help somebody, and I'll keep on doing it. I volunteer. I work at one point I was working as a paramedic twice a week in Detroit. And it was great. I loved it. You're helping people that really could use it. And it's very gratifying knowing that, as somebody once said to me, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but there was a person, it was an older woman, I think, older gentleman, older woman. The both of them said to me at one point, and when we got to the hospital, they said, you're the nicest paramedic I've ever had. And there was nothing I could do for them. But it's like, wow, it makes you feel good that you know that you're making a difference. And I think that's what we're here supposed to do in life.
Yeah.
We're supposed to make a difference. And don't let the negatives affect you. Don't be defined by any of the negatives. If you want to be defined, let the negatives turn into positives and define yourself from that and move forward.
Oh yeah. Well, how many stories have we read in the Bible where God brings out good character in people who basically deserve to be angry? They deserve to exact revenge on the person that's doing them wrong, but they decide to do the right thing.
Oh, 100%.
So
100%.
I'll put you
It's
right there with them. I ain't afraid to say it.
I I appreciate that, but no, I don't wear a halo, and
Don't have to.
we, we all have our strong points, and the truth is, life is all about growth, and I don't want you to think that, oh gosh, it never bothers me. Of course it
Of
does. There are
course it's got
definitely
to.
times that yeah, it's and then you know what I do, I'll work out for a couple. I'll actually go work out for a couple hours, even when I wrote my dissertation. And I wrote my dissertation, I interviewed people like me
Hmm.
that really went through where the government took advantage and there was never accountability. And some very famous people, and I wrote them up. And I remember approaching one person in particular to interview for my dissertation because I
Hmm.
compared what happened to us as going through the 5 or 7 stages of the grief process. And this one person, again, I won't say who, but he actually won his case against the government. There's a but there. The same thing happened to him that happened to me. He said when he sued the government said, "Oh no, it's state secrets," and he said, "You're lying." Something happened that could prove that he was right, and they were lying. The same in my case, because I don't have necessarily the concrete proof. I have proof, but they're not willing to listen to it. And they were going to take away, I think, the law licenses. I could be wrong on this. Sanction the government attorneys involved and take away the license. He settled with for quite a bit of money, and I wanted to interview him, and he said, "I can't." I said, "I understand." He said, "No, you don't." I said, "Yeah, I understand. It's not that you can't, that the government told you can't, but the effect it had on you, even though you won, and even though he went through maybe 4 or 5 years of having to deal with it, the effect it has on you in a psychological way or whatever, you don't want to dredge it up again. You just don't." And I said, "You don't have to say anything to me. You don't owe me an apology." Super nice guy. So you don't owe me an apology. I just, God willing, everything should go well with you and everything should be fine. That was my last conversation with him. But it's it's I think the people that have more difficulty, I don't think they necessarily had backing from, I'm guessing, family, friends, faith. I don't know. I don't know. But all I know is that, yes, it does affect me periodically, but affect and take over are two different ways of looking at it. It doesn't take over my life. Just moving
Well,
forward.
if ever that comes across your mind that hey, maybe I want to try something else, but then the back of your mind is like, as soon as they look me up, they're gonna know who I am.
I had
That's a constant reminder.
I had a recent one. You'll like this one. I was speaking to somebody. Again, I can't tell you. It was another government organization. It was for government work. It wasn't. I was still going to be on my base, but they needed somebody like me. They said, "Oh, you're a chemical engineer. You're a paramedic. I need somebody to help us work this program. Would you do it?" I said, "Yeah, be happy to." Went through like about a week going back and forth, and all of a sudden I'm on the phone. They said, "I'm not working with you." I said, "Excuse me?" I said, "I'm not working with you. I just Googled your name. I don't trust you." I said, "Well, you do realize that I had done nothing wrong, and there was a report that said that my security clearance was upgraded from secret to top secret." He says, "That's not my job to figure out who's right and wrong." I said, "I think it's pretty obvious when it says it's anti-Semitism that I'm right." He says, "I don't have to work with you." I said, "Okay,
Well,
that's your decision to make, and I'll move on." And you know, comes back and haunts you. That's why when I tell people, one question I always ask them, I have my book here, I kind of joke about it. I said, there are people that wrote reviews, and just like I said, it came out when COVID hit, because I was supposed to go speak about it to some places. I'd been invited. And I asked people one question: what was your reaction after you read the book? What was your feelings? And almost to the T, everybody said, I felt like taking the book and throwing it across the room. I said, well, basically, I said, no, it was a great book, but I was so angry when I heard the story that I read about it, that this is going on in our day and age. And they said, why don't you go speak about it? I said, fine. Eventually, I hope to get invited to speak in different places, because I think, especially our kids, high school, college kids, people need to know. And it's not in front of just Jewish audiences. It's like you and I discussed before we started the program. It's people that, and it's any religion, Baptist, Catholic, anybody. People need to know what's going on and to figure out, where do I want to be? Do I want to be one of the people who stands back while a bullying is going on, or people are getting away with it and say, oh, gee, not me, I'm staying away from this? Or do I want to be one of the people that says, this is not going to happen over here. I am not allowing this to happen. Not just for, quote, them, but how their kids going to view them. I asked somebody once when they said something to me, I said, how do you want your kids to look at you in 10 years from now when they saw what you did? And they're going to find out. People will find out. How do you want them to view you? So I leave it with that. But I appreciate all your kindness and your good words as well.
Oh, I tell you, I can usually judge people by their character within the first 5 minutes of meeting them. I don't know. I've had that gift for years, and it's never failed me. My gut has never failed me once. Now, my mind has, when I say I go against what my gut says, but I've always been right. And but as you were saying, I never thought that I would see a day when saying that you're a Christian would be like saying a dirty word. It used to be part of, if you wanted to be a successful politician, you had to be at church every Sunday.
Oh, wow.
You have to distance yourself from that kind of thing. People see that you go to church, and sometimes they're very reluctant to hire you because you go to church.
Really?
It doesn't matter if you're a Christian. It could be a Jew or what have you. I don't understand it. But religious people are discriminated against all the time. And people can debate me on that, but I can show you.
Wow. I think that's why I would love to speak to like we talked about before the show. I'd love to go to places and speak to the Baptist people, because I think they're very open towards listening to other people. I could be wrong. I'm not perfect in anything, but I'd love to be able to speak to people like that, people, evangelicals, anybody. I had a friend of mine who was African American, was black. He said to me, says, what happened to you was just horrendous. And he says, I don't get how it's still going on. Another guy, a friend of mine, who was a 20-year Marine guy. And he was actually, when he came to my base, he started working there. I had a supervisor at that point, going back about 10 years, who supposedly was trying to help me get a promotion. First guy was going to get me promoted. And he said, yeah, I'm working on this. Found out later, he actually told this new guy, who was this big Marine guy, he said, stay away from Tenenbaum. Stay away from him. He's bad news. So everything I was being told was a lie. And he looked at me and says, you're not angry? I said, again, what do you want me to do? It's like, we're going to go punch a guy out. It's like, it's not my problem. Yeah. It's just, none of this is my problem. And then people think to themselves, well, why don't you want to do this? I said, I'm not looking for revenge. I'm looking for people to hopefully look at what I'm, not just me. I look at my wife, who put up with this for like 24 years. We've been married for almost 30 years. It's like 6 years into marriage or so, 7 years in, having 2 kids, we have 4 kids altogether, having to not know if her husband was going to be put away the rest, never see him again, and how she dealt with it. I mean, she was tremendous. I give her so much credit. I give my kids the credit. one of my kids who wasn't even born at the time said to me, you know, you don't even realize how much it affected me. I said, you're kidding. He says, no, you don't understand, because they knew what I was going through. They knew what. One of my kids won't even read the book. They just can't read. They won't read the book. They said they can't read what happened to their father. And I said, I understand that. And I said, but just learn from maybe what I'm going through, that there's a lot more important things in life, and family and how we treat people. Nobody, you know, it's part of what we have to do. So one day I hope to be able to get the point across and speak in different places. And maybe, like I said, I mean, I never thought I'd say this, that I can actually inspire people. It's like, that's kind of funny to me. But to be able to inspire people, to empower people, like I said, I'd love to get into the Hollywood movement, not to become part of, but to get over there and tell people, look, stand behind something like this. Think of what you can do. Think of the amount of people you can reach. Think of the kids that can look and say, wow, I could do this too. I can reinvent myself. I can do what's right. I think we've lost that component. What's right, or what people are looking at us, and what we just want them to see.
Yeah. Now, my earlier statement about, you know, people being religious and not being hired, I'm not saying everybody looks at Christians or, you know, church going people that way. I'm just, there are a lot of businesses out there that try to stay away from that. So I want to make that clear. So you know.
Oh, no problem. I totally get that.
Well, we tend to want to lump everybody in the same category, and that's not fair. So I just want to make that clear. But I I tell you, I don't blame the kids. That's got to be rough on them as well. I mean, just look at it this way: the government took their father away from them for a long time.
Right, right.
So sure, that's going to bring back some bad memories.
Yeah, but they've come out. I tell you, they come out, I'd say, unscathed. They've learned from it. I
Well,
give
they're
them a lot of
stronger
credit.
people.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, and they recognized it. They recognized me writing the book was a catharsis, also. You know, getting it down on paper and such.
Well, you can look at it this way too. Just like a piece of coal is going to go through a lot of pressure before it becomes a diamond.
Right.
That's the way your family has become, and that
Correct,
just means
correct.
you're stronger. You're better for it.
Right, right. What is it that doesn't kill you, makes you stronger? Is that the?
That's right.
I think I can actually say that in this case.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, we are going to do everything we can to try to help you out, and get the word out there. Maybe get you some speaking engagements, because I do know a few people, so I'm gonna
Thank
reach
you,
out to
thank
them.
you.
I can't make any promises, but I do know some directors that I could talk to that might be interested in the story.
That'd be great. And if you send me your address, I'm going to send you a copy of the book too.
Oh, man, that'd be wonderful. You have to autograph it though.
I will. I actually have one in front of me right now, and I pulled it out and I said, okay, I got to get you a copy. If you have time to read it, as
Okay, I will, but I will say that I'm reading a really fascinating book on Frank Zappa right now, so
oh,
I have to
okay,
get through
okay.
that one first. No, but seriously, is there like some social media or website that people can go to so they can get to know more about you and about your book?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, it's fun. Let me grab something here. Because as I said, my daughter and my kids set up the website. The website is drdavidatenenbaum.com. It's Dr. David A. Tenenbaum. The spelling of my name, it's Tenenbaum.com. If you go onto that website, there's quite a bit of information. If you actually go on Amazon, look up the book, they actually have a what do they call the flaps? So they talk a little bit about it too. It's called Accused of Treason, the U.S. Army's Witch Hunt for a Jewish Spy. It's on Amazon. And if anybody ever wants to send me an email, I read all my emails. And if anybody has any ideas, I'm always willing to listen. And I've had people call me from different places saying, I'm going through this now. What do we do? Can you help me? And I do the best I can. I think it's part of when we go through things, we go through it for a purpose. And maybe my purpose is maybe I can help other people too. And that'd be great if I can help other people. But that's, I'll send you some information. My daughter, I think, sent you the media kit. My PR person sent you the media kit.
Yes.
And that you can send that anywhere you want as well.
We will share the links in the description of the video. So once this gets uploaded to YouTube, also on all our audio descriptions as well, because this goes to both.
Excellent.
So all they have to do is click on the link and they'll go straight to it. And
Great.
I advise everyone, I'm definitely going to read the book. I love to read anyway. And let's face it, there ain't nothing on television no more.
I don't have a television.
Well, I can't say that I don't have a television, but we don't watch broadcast television anymore. So
Okay. I've heard this from different people too.
Hey, everything I watch is usually from the 70s anyway. So
I know the feeling. But I have to tell you, it's really been a pleasure. Even the discussion we had before this started, it's really been a pleasure meeting you and talking to you.
Thank you. I can say the same.
And I really hope that all the the medical issues you heal up quickly, and should just keep on going on in a positive direction. And I'd love to send you a copy of the book. Send me your information, and I'll get it out to you as soon as possible.
I appreciate that. Really do. And of course, everybody that watches this and listens to us, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this segment. We will be bringing you some people just like Dr. Tenenbaum here, and keep supporting the channel, because without you, we just couldn't do it.
Thanks.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, because it's only through your support that we're able to continue doing the things that we do. And until the next one, have a great day.